And the reason is simple. In the end, under our system, real power comes from the ballot box. And if the people who want a socialist country begin to realize that on every level we are prepared to take them on, if they're in a deeply Democratic district, run against them in the Democratic primary. If they're in a swing district, you may want to run as a Republican. If they're a Republican incumbent who isn't doing their job, you want to replace them. This is a nonpartisan commitment to citizen involvement to make sure that every single office has somebody who's dedicated to America's future. And there are enough folks in this room that if you took your email list and you went out around the country, you'd be shocked how many people you can recruit. And when people tell you, I'm too busy, they're telling you how much they don't value their country. The time has come. We need an absolute citizens' movement to achieve this. The second thing we have to do is we have to learn how to campaign effectively. We have to be as good or better than our competitors on the left at getting messages out, at organizing people. There is no neighborhood in America that we should write off. There is no group in America that we should write off. There are no people. Look, even a hardcore liberal Democrat might wake up one morning and suddenly decide that they would like prosperity, they would like safety, they would like freedom. So you don't give up on anybody. You go out and you find every single person and you recognize that effective campaigning isn't the last 30 days. It's 365 days a year. I remember Lady Thatcher, after they won one of their great victories, at the victory party that night said, all right, you get to party tonight, 10 o'clock in the morning, we go back to work and start doing this again. We have to have the attitude that our country is worth our commitment to make sure that everybody is engaged. The last thing I'll say is we have to win the argument. It's very important to understand this. And Lady Thatcher said, first you win the argument, then you win the vote. Now, the great thing for us about the Obama presidency, as happened in 1993 with the Clintons, as happened in 1977 with Carter, is that the president is willing to make the argument so starkly that Americans look up, start to pay attention and go, that's wrong. And so the president is actually helping us educate the American people. And we should encourage him to go on every talk show he can. There's an old rule that good advertising kills a bad product faster because it gets attention to the bad product. I want to suggest to you that a great orator with the wrong philosophy teaches the entire country quicker how wrong his philosophy is. And that's what's happening to the president. They want to have an energy program based on punishing the American people with $1,800 per family of higher taxes, and the average American looks up and goes, let me get this straight. We have 9.8% unemployment, and you want to increase the cost of energy in America? And the average American thinks that that is a sign that they are totally, completely out of touch with reality, which is, by the way, an accurate assessment. The Veterans Administration cannot get out the checks for the additional $3,000 voted for returning GIs to go to college, and so college is having to borrow the money because the U.S. government bureaucracy can't deliver. The federal government can't organize the vaccine for flu, but they want to take over all of our health care. And the average American looks up and thinks, you know, what planet are you living on that you would think this would work? Somebody who believes you could organize a national bureaucracy for 305 million Americans to take care of their health is a person who will believe almost anything, including their ability to go to Copenhagen and magically turn around a vote. Let me make a serious point about what happened yesterday, because I think it's a serious indicator of a fundamental danger of this administration. I remember when Atlanta got the Olympics. It was an extraordinary moment. And I remember the job Ambassador Andy Young did. For months, working to make sure that the case for Atlanta was made to every member of the Olympic Committee. And the Atlanta team had worked for years to do that. If this administration had had a consistent, steady, disciplined plan for 6 or 8 months, Chicago might have won yesterday. I would love for Chicago to have the Olympics. Chicago is a great city. It would be terrific to have the Olympics here. But you can't try to lead the world on the spur of the moment, changing your mind at the last minute, rushing in, and thinking that smiling and oratory is a substitute for work and preparation. President Eisenhower, who was the first American president to go to summits with our competitors in the Soviet Empire, had a firm rule: months of preparation, careful thought, developing the case. President Reagan spent months preparing before he met with Gorbachev, knew exactly what he wanted to accomplish, had laid the base for it. It's very dangerous in a dangerous world to try to provide leadership on a random basis out of your hip pocket because you think that a smile will substitute for a success. And I think this is a very serious challenge. Now, let me give you a bold example of winning the argument. We're trying to get a sign from James Carville that says it's the economy, stupid, which he, member, had in Bill Clinton's campaign headquarters in Little Rock in 1992. I personally think President Obama would be well served to put that sign in the Oval Office. When you have 9.8% unemployment, and you have people working part-time who aren't counted as unemployed, and you have people who quit looking who are not counted as unemployed, so that the actual number in California of all three groups combined may be as high as 1 out of every 5 people, you have a genuine need to develop an economic policy that will work. And when you have a politician-centered, bureaucratically delivered government spending program, that is not a stimulus. That is actually a burden. That doesn't increase economic growth. That actually weakens the economy. But let me suggest to you what a real stimulus to create real jobs might look like. Starting with the premise we're in the world market, we're competing with China and India, we want to create permanent, long-term, good jobs based on innovation, productivity, entrepreneurship, creating goods and services that can compete with anybody in the world, and making sure that our workforce isn't the most productive in the world and that our investments in new technology is the best in the world. If that's the kind of future we want, if we truly want prosperity for our children and grandchildren, I'm going to give you 4 very bold ideas that we've developed at American Solutions, because we've started working back from what would it take, what is worth winning the argument for? What's a big enough change that the country would, in fact, begin to move with the kind of dynamic excitement that we once had? The first thing I would do is I would have a 2-year 50% reduction in the Social Security and Medicare tax, including the employer's match, which would give every small business in America more liquidity, allow every small business to start hiring people, do it without any bureaucracy or any government involvement, and would mean that if you worked, you would get a genuine tax cut, because every worker from the very poorest pays the Social Security and Medicare tax. And in the process, every American would suddenly learn how much taxes they had been paying, because they would suddenly see it